typically they go to school and they learn how to argue and how to discuss and Socrates and different things like that. Well, that's not me. And I'm very much what you see is what you get. Right. Um, okay. So if you look at the definition of outside the box is going to be to explore ideas that are creative, unusual, and they don't go with tradition and they kind of don't follow the rules. And unfortunately, I'm kind of one of those don't follow the rules gal, but sometimes it's done me right and sometimes it's done me wrong, but get there. Okay. So if you're doing things outside the box, you've heard lots about doing things that are not typical lecture. They're not typical activities, right? All day to day. You engage students, you don't use the traditional methods. This is going to create real world impact. It gets them to use skills that they typically don't use in a lecture class, right? And it's going to foster that critical thinking and creativity. And so the Biology 216, or Preserving the Planet Through Beer, Bread, and Brie, is for STEM and non-STEM majors, right? It's where science meets history and ethics and creativity. We talk about world history and how the advancement of food preservation techniques colonized our world, okay? If you are living in an area where food is available all the time, you're going to stay in that area where food is available all the time. If you can't prepare your food so that you can travel with it, right? And so when we learned how to dry food and take it with us to places where there wasn't food, we moved to those areas. And when we learned how to preserve other different types of food for longer trips, we were able to go farther. And so this is what allowed our earth to be populated, right? As the peoples learned the different ways of preservation techniques, and that allowed them to take longer and longer and longer trips. And so it's really teaching food preservation, you get history built in. Okay, it's kind of nice. We talk about food systems, we talk about free range, we talk about confinement systems, we talk about sustainability, we talk about zero waste, we talk about food miles, we talk about all these different things. And then food preservation, we go back to science. I say a lot how not to kill somebody, right? Because if you try to preserve food the wrong way and you present that to people, you can kill somebody. Right? So we joke about that a lot, but it really is true. Right. And so they learn all these different things. They learn food preservation methods and they learn different ways to be more sustainable and have smaller carbon footprints. And they also get cultural awareness because we talk about how all these things came from different peoples and were involved in different lifestyles and history and traditions. So how did this happen? Okay. Along with me being me, I taught microbiology for majors. And when we were there, we used Bunsen burners. And we used the flints to do that a lot. Okay. For curiosity, I set out matchbooks. And I learned a lot of students didn't know how to light a match. They did not know how to light a match. Blew my mind. And I could not, with all my being, allow students to go through a class of not learning how to light a match. That simple thing, right? And so that got me thinking, what else do they not know? And what else can I teach that I know how to do that they may not know how to do that would serve them well? Okay. Well, lighting a match I can do, right? Making fires. And also all sorts of different types of food preservation methods and meat harvesting and growing things in your garden and preserving those and doing these things I'd been doing for a very, very long time. Okay. And so I wrote a course proposal. It was for one of those special topics classes where you just try it out and see how it's going to go. And so it was approved in the spring of 21 and we offered it the fall of 2021, 22, 23. And we've just recently offered it this past January and we'll offer it in the fall again too. The course now fills within a day and a half, 2 days. I can only take 18 students in the class because that's the number that will fit in my classroom. That is a lab, but not a lab. Okay. And so it's well, students learn quite a bit. And so we do hands-on. We do lecture as well as hands-on. We do dehydration all the way to brewing. We make jams and jerky and kombucha and soda and cheese and bread and pickles and all things in between. And at the end, we have a student team bake-off. And so this bake-off is timed. They have 2 or 2.5 hours to do it. They must create products that are either created by food preservation methods or they use foods that are preserved. And then they have to give the recipes and the justification and why their products took the most advantage of food preservation methods and techniques that they've learned. And then they're judged. And typically they're judged by President Stephanie Sandlin, the provost. We had the chief of staff there different times. And so we also invited different classes to come in and judge and taste the leftovers and everything this past year. And so we have different groups available and around, and it builds the collaboration and the communication and time management skills and planning. And there's just all these things that they learn. Sometimes things don't go as we want them to go. We wanted to make cheese, and so lots of times the way and when your class is taught dictates how you do things and what you can and cannot do, especially in a class when you are making things, making food, right? Mozzarella only takes theoretically about 30 minutes. And when you only have a 50-minute class period to set up, make your foods and clean up, it can get really interesting. This year, when we did this, that did not work very well. That's about all we got. We got clods of mozzarella cheese. When we did the mozzarella cheese this past interim, we actually had the nice mozzarella balls, and it went really, really well. I'm not exactly sure what went on. We also make, so this is one of the first activities I start them out with, is cutting and slicing apples with a little bit of ascorbic acid for dehydration. Some of my students don't know how to peel apples when I get them. Okay. And so we talk about kitchen safety and we talk about how to handle knives and different things like that. And so they work together and we do dehydration. A couple of years ago, the sustainability initiative on campus got a grant, and we have a small orchard that we're growing. And they also bought an apple crusher, and they bought an apple cider press. And so that year, my students got to put the press together and the crusher together because it came in a box. And so we all got together and we put everything together. And then they washed apples and cut out the bad parts and they threw this in, and quite entertaining. They really, really enjoyed this. And then they got to drink the cider, which is better and a lot sour than the ones that you get in the store. This is a picture of groups getting together for the bake-off class final. We have groups scattered out throughout our kitchen that we have in one of our dorms. We have a stove, we have 2 ovens, we have a microwave, a fridge, and tables. And so because we typically have 5 to 6 groups, they all need to work together to figure out who's going to be using the oven, what temperature, who needs the stove, who can use just a hot plate, who needs ice, who can use, and so there's all this coordination that they need to do, and they're responsible for doing it. They're also responsible for getting all their equipment over across campus into that room, and every once in a while that goes really well. We have phone calls made to roommates. I need the whatever. Yeah. So this is just a setup, and so they all present their wares to the different judges, and judges go through and they're judged on different things, quality and effort. Taste is just part of it, and presentation is part of it as well. And then a team is crowned victorious every year. And so some of the things that I do in my class to help design this is I use reflection that is built in. And so almost every week, I ask them to do a self-reflection on the things that we've learned and the things that we've done, the things that they would like to see, the things that they didn't. And it also encourages me to keep going with some of the things and maybe back off on some of the other things. And so some of them really like how we talk about sustainability, and how they can contribute to it. Um, a lot of them come in and they're a little bit scared with science, and so they really enjoy that turn we take on science. Um, and usually they learn something about every day if I do it right. And so that went so well. I thought, well, what else do we need to do? What do we need to do to get a brewing minor? And so I looked all over and did my research and figured that if we made 3 more classes, we could do a brewing minor. And so we now have a brewing fermentation minor. We have 2 tracks. We have the applied, which is going to be the fermentation and brewing side. And then we have marketing, business, advertising, different things like that. It's been this huge, wonderful collaboration between our university and the community. We have an advisory board that we use to develop the minor, and it's made up of industry professionals. We have multiple brewers. We have poet. We have vineyard owners, all these different people, cidery owners, different things. And they all helped us figure out what we need to offer our students that would make our students more employable to them. Okay. We have several student projects that have been extremely successful. When we launched the program in the fall of 22, we also launched Brew and Gold Lager, and that's a collaboration between Remedy Brewing Company and the Brewing Fermentation Leader Program. The name of the beer and the label of the beer were designed by the students in my class. And so that was really, really interesting. We also do soda and apple cider sales. We make our own soda and then we sell it at football games and we have it at different activities throughout the school year. And so this teaches them supply line, personnel management, time management, um, sanitation issues, how to follow protocols, dealing with rules and regulations and why we can do some things and why we can't do other things. And then we have the student project. The most recent one is the senior capstone collaboration that we use for our brewing and fermentation program. And that has been quite a hit this year. And so this is a picture. We have a vendor tent and we have some products, different things that we had to purchase to make the sales work. We've had lots of things donated by members of the community. We have a kegerator that we had donated. We have several kegs that we had donated. We have some CO2 tanks donated. We've had to buy a few other things, but a lot of the things the community has kind of pitched in and allowed us to purchase and do. And so selling at football games is very interesting because you have to prepare the soda about a week ahead of time. You have to make sure that somebody carbonates it and shakes it every day up until the day you sell. You need to make sure that you can get all your equipment over to the venue, and then you have to set up at that venue, and you have to make sure everything is there. And then you have to have students staff it throughout the whole game, so they rotate through. And very quickly, the students involved learn that everybody has their niche that they can fill, and not everybody is a good customer facing person, and not everybody is a good soda dispenser person. And so it's been a real learning experience, I think, for them as well as me. And then the other picture is that Brew and Gold Lager that we put together. And so it's been very beneficial to the students. I think they get an eye-opening experience when they're working with vendors and discussing the possibility of being able to sell their products wholesale, which is a possibility, and figuring out if they want to commit to that, if they don't want to commit to that. We have The capstone that we're doing, the capstone was designed to bring our seniors together, the business track and the applied track. And so we pair those up. We had a team of 4 this year. We had 2 applied students and we had 2 business students. And so they had to come up with their audience, they had to come up with their product, and then they had to come up with a marketing strategy. And thankfully, we've had a collaborator that was willing to go in with us. And he came in and we made a pitch. And then he interrogated them and asked them what their goals were, what their objectives were. And came down and this team decided to make a orange honey saison. And so we had one of our students do the recipe and the rest of them worked out different marketing tactics and events that they wanted to happen. And we did a media blitz day where we had the Argus Leader and Kelloland and Dakota News Now, all there, interviewing students. And we have, yeah, it was crazy. And so we're wanting to get these high visibility outcomes and provide these experiences that they just can't get in the classroom. And I think we kind of hit it spot on. And so this is the team of students. And this is, I think it's a couple days before launch date. And so once this started, it went very, very quickly because classes started February 6th and we needed to have the recipe nailed down, the supplies there, and everything ready to brew by March 6th. And so this all happened very quickly. And we've talked about how we can change that too. And so the students actually, they made the beer. Okay, and so they got to hang out in the brewery. And this up here in the corner is either Kelloland or Dakota News Now doing a bit and interviewing one of our students in the brew room. They made the beer, they kegged the beer, they helped do all the marketing for it. They talked with admin and marketing people and got what we could do and what we couldn't do. And it went really well. And so this is our orange honey saison. And so this picture right here was taken by one of the students when we were doing one of our preliminary meetings. And when Sam is the owner of the bar, when Sam started talking to them about profit margins and markups, it was like a deer in headlights from the students. And I think those students learned more in that 30-minute meeting than they learned in 3 years in the classroom. It was fantastic. And lucky for us, Sam, who we collaborated with, was a very patient teacher. He's very bright, he's very smart, and he's also very passionate and very involved and wanted these students to learn everything. We couldn't have done it without his support. And it was just fantastic. And so they met periodically. There's more pictures. I had so many pictures, but they're all in this HEIC format and I couldn't get them on my slides. So, but and these are a few of the quotes from the 3 seniors that are graduating this year. And so one of them was business marketing, and he is very high energy and he's very passionate and he is very much on the marketing side, but he got to go into the industry side as well in the brewing. And so he really, really enjoyed that. I have another student that was new to campus, and when he started school there, he was very much alone, or he felt very much alone, and getting involved in this program changed everything. And so now they have this group of friends that they formed that I'm fairly certain they'll be in contact for quite a while. The other one, some of them join brewing because it's brewing, right? But students don't want to brew beer. Okay. But once they get into it, they start seeing everything else. Okay. The first t-shirt that we made, the first promotional t-shirt that we made, on the back has not just beer. because it isn't. It's far, far more, far, far more. Product wise, as well as soft skills and transferable skills and all these different experiences. It's so much more than beer. And so these are the different things, kind of the deliverables that we've done. And so we've got the two collaborative products. We've got the Brew and Gold Lager, Honey Saison, and we also have a soda that they've created and they had named by the public. And I don't remember what the name was, Berry Viking or something. And then we have a bunch of different, we have a student club that is the Brewing and Fermentation Club, and they are like on fire. They were just awarded the ASA Choice Club of the Year this year. That was pretty exciting. But we've done pickle making workshops, and they hosted a pickleball competition where teams paid to play, and then they got award baskets, and they had charcuterie boards and pickles and different things out for them to drink, to eat. They just did a sip, snap, and study night at the library last night, where they did different make your own sodas and snacks and different things for people to get, because it's finals week at home. And then they do the soda and cider production and the sales events. And then they created an actual soda committee to look into this and try to figure out how we can make more money for our program and create a more enhanced experience for the students that want to do the production and the marketing and the different things like that. I went through a transferable skills list and I ran out of space on my slide. Okay. The communication and the decision making and the relationships and organization and the attention to detail and these kind of things are just I could go on and on, honestly. There's a few things that we run into when you're doing a project like this. And so some of the STEM majors get a bit overwhelmed when you start talking about some of the science, but I think I process it and feed it through so that they're a little less scared of it and that they take it in. I do a lot of scaffolding of content. And I try to emphasize real world applications. I'm not a stickler for vocabulary unless it's absolutely needed. And so we use visuals, we use all sorts of different descriptors, and we use hands-on type things. And that generally gets it across and teaches them what I want them to learn. The third wheel problem, oh my goodness. And so when you have limited space and you have limited sets of equipment, things can get really interesting. And so I tried groups of 3 and I tried groups of 4 for the main classroom time. And I figured out that teams of 2, it just is what it's going to have to be. Because we typically give them a recipe. They'll figure out what they're going to need for that. And then they make the item and then they need to do cleanup as well. And when you have a third person, it just didn't work. It just wasn't working. And so we now work with 9 teams of 2, unless we're doing a product where I can have them all do individual things, which isn't very often. Or unless I'm doing more of a demo type thing where either the product is really expensive and different things like that. And so we've kind of worked around that a little bit. We also do teams with assigned tasks and duties. When we get into the bake-off, the very final thing, they've shuffled team members enough where they can pick people out and then they assign people to do things. And that works out really quite well because they do multiple products. So they need to be working together, but they can also work as a couple teams. High visibility. Because both the class and the products of being in that brewing and fermentation minor gets them in front of people, in front of the public, on the news, it adds pressure to them, and I have to remind them that it's all right. They're students, they're learning, they're not going to be perfect, and people want to know what we're doing. They want the reality. And so I think that allows them to feel more comfortable about it. We, when we're making things, I always tell them this will probably work, right? When we did a soda project last year, I told them you can choose to do one of these sodas. The berry lemon basil always works. The root beer usually doesn't work, or you can go through my soda book and pick one. I had one group do the berry lemon basil, the one that I knew was guaranteed to work, and the rest of them wanted a challenge, and they picked out root beer. When you make root beer from scratch with the herbs, I think we had one of 4 that we could actually tolerate drinking. But they were happy. Oh, they loved it. We had one do a cola, and that one kind of sort of worked okay. And then we had one do a cherry limeade, something or another, and they wanted to use real yeast to carbonate it instead of the CO2 that we use for carbonation. Well, it got left too long in wherever it was. And I couldn't serve it to students because the alcohol content was too high. So, and reality and things just happening, it's real life, right? And when they've been exposed to these, experiments and modules and different things all the time that always work because they're canned and it's been worked out and they always work. They get in a class like mine where they do things and they follow the directions or they think they follow the directions and they really didn't. It's so good for them. And it builds confidence because then we talk about what went wrong and it's okay. And we're happy about it. And they don't fail it because the products aren't graded, right? The products are not graded. And so you create this supportive learning, low risk environment, and that allows them to be creative and to be themselves, and they thrive. So if you're going to try to do something like this, make sure that you are passionate about it. I cannot count the hours that I have spent outside of class time and outside of the work week on this project. Cannot count the hours. Absolutely require student feedback. Encourage them to be as honest as they can and remind them, and let them know that you are using them as a way to better this program or this course or whatever you have, right? I made the mistake of trying to use contract grading one semester. Total disaster. It was absolutely horrible. Because another part of this class is that I ask the students what they'd like to make. And so I have a handful of things that I know we're going to make, that we're going to do. And then they get to pick some of the other things. And so you have to be able to pivot and you have to be able to take feedback and you have to be able to adjust. For some of the students, not having a schedule set in stone makes them really uncomfortable. But if you support them and you let them know that being a little uncomfortable with having to pivot is okay, and that some people don't pivot as easily as others, they get more comfortable with that, right? And then it gets better for them. So that's teaching them how to kind of adjust on the fly as well. And some people really have a hard time with that. We prioritize the hands-on activities. And don't be afraid. If you only know how to do part of something and you don't know how to do the other part, that's okay, right? Be a lifelong learner. I did not know how to make kombucha before I started this class. And now I can make kombucha. As a matter of fact, my husband wants me to make more kombucha because he likes the kombucha that I make. I had never actually brewed beer before, ever, or hard cider, but you learn. You talk to people. You admit when you don't know how to do something and you go for help. Having a really nice source of collaborators that are willing to work with you and that believe in whatever project you want to do is key. Okay. And so if you have an idea of something you think you can involve students in that they could partially lead with guidance, and you have a source of professionals that are willing to get on board with this, do it. Try it. Talk your admin into it. Say, just want to try it this one semester and let's see what happens. And if that goes okay, try it another semester. Right now, we're trying to figure out, there's two things we're trying to figure out. We're trying to figure out how to get a law in South Dakota so that students between the ages of 19 and 21 can sip and spit and do their things, because it would make our lives a lot easier, timing wise. The other thing that we're trying to figure out is how to get a teaching hub on campus run by students. I'm going to be retiring in 5 or 6 or 7 years or so, and I want that, but we'll see. But the students are working on it. It's pretty cool. Involve the community. It's pretty cool. And so when you're thinking of all this, right, what is your passion, right? What's your outside the box idea? What could you provide your students at your university that they don't have access to and they can't do on campus right now? Okay. How can you make it student driven, right? How can you get them involved? What kind of majors and minors can be involved in your project, right? In the brewing and fermentation minor, we have everybody from arts, psychology and sociology, business, admin, communication, pre-med, chemistry, biology, sustainability folks. It's just crazy. Okay. And then what resources do you need? Our university has a program. It's called the Oliver Innovation Fund Grant. And if you're starting a program, you can write and you can get about $7 grand. And that $7 grand was enough to pay for one adjunct to teach the beer classes and get a small, like 10-gallon brewing system that we could use, and some other equipment as well. And so figure out what you need, figure out what you can get donated. We had a bunch of stuff donated. Okay. And so if you have these ideas and you're not exactly sure how to flesh them out, I am more than willing to help you kind of think things through. I have a really good mentor that was in Sacred Heart College up in Ohio, and they have a small brewing program, and he's a liberal arts. And I went back and forth with him quite a bit. And I talked to our advisory board quite a bit. And so if you have some ideas, let me know. That's an email address and contact request from the QR code. And then this is this other one with the dinosaur is the senior capstone LinkedIn page. Okay. And that may give you some ideas too of how the students were involved in different things that they can do. I'm willing to give you all the information that I can give you to help you further your project. Okay. Any questions?